Have you ever looked at a simple cut and thought about the incredible process that's about to happen? Well, what if that process just stopped? For millions of people with diabetes, a small wound can turn into a chronic, unhealing nightmare. It's a huge medical mystery, and we're going to dive in and figure out how the body's own defense system can actually turn against itself.
To get a sense of just how massive this problem is, just look at this number: $755 billion. That's the rough estimate of what it costs to treat these wounds across the globe, every single year. It's an absolutely staggering figure.
But, that number is just the financial cost. The human cost is on a whole other level. We are talking about more than 131 million people around the world living with this constant risk, where a tiny injury could spiral into a life-altering crisis. So that leads us right to the heart of the matter, the big question we're here to answer. What is actually going on? At the biological level, why on earth do these wounds just stubbornly refuse to get better? Well, it turns out the answer is buried deep inside our own immune system. Right, a wound that won't heal. And look, we're not just talking about something that takes a little extra time. For so many people, these chronic ulcers can lead to really severe infections, and in the absolute worst-case scenarios, even amputation. So understanding why this happens is the critical first step to stopping it. Okay, so to crack this case, we first have to understand the rule book. What's supposed to happen? How does a healthy body fix a wound? It's actually this beautifully coordinated performance, like a 3-act play put on by your immune cells.
And here are the 3 acts. First up is inflammation. That's the emergency response, cleaning the wound, calling in the troops. Then comes proliferation. That's the rebuilding phase, where brand new tissue gets made. And finally, you have remodeling, where that new tissue gets stronger and finalized. In a healthy person, this whole process just flows perfectly from one stage to the next.
Now, this is where the plot thickens. In diabetic wounds, the immune system, which is supposed to be the hero of the story, gets totally confused. Its timing gets all messed up, its signals get crossed, and it ends up betraying its whole mission. It actually starts doing more harm than good. So let's meet some of the key players that go rogue. All right, first up, let's talk about the macrophages. Just think of these guys as the multi-talented cleanup and rebuild crew. Their job is to come in, clear out all the debris, and then give the signal that it's time to start rebuilding. So here's what's so fascinating. In a normal wound, macrophages are masters of disguise. They start out in this aggressive, pro-inflammatory M1 mode to fight off any bad guys. But then they gracefully switch hats and become pro-repair M2 cells to help heal. The problem is, in diabetic wounds, they get stuck. They're permanently in that angry M1 mode, just causing endless inflammation and damage instead of fixing anything. Next on our list of suspects, we have the neutrophils. These are the first responders. They're like the SWAT team that rushes to the scene of the crime to take out any invading germs. And the deal with neutrophils is they're supposed to be disciplined. Normally, they get in, do their job, and get out. But in a diabetic environment, they totally overstay their welcome. They just keep releasing this flood of destructive enzymes and chemicals that cause massive collateral damage to healthy tissue, effectively trapping the wound in that first inflammatory stage. And that brings us to our third rogue agent, the dendritic cells. Their job is absolutely essential. They are the waste management team, and they're responsible for clearing away all the dead and dying cells from the wound site. And this is where it all just falls apart. I mean, think about it. You can't build a new house on a pile of rubble, right? Normally, these dendritic cells are super efficient at this cleanup process, which has a fancy name, efferocytosis. But in diabetic wounds, they're just bad at their job. Dead cells start piling up, and all that junk just keeps sending out danger signals that fuel even more inflammation. So let's just put a name to that process: efferocytosis. It's the technical term for that all-important job of clearing away dead cells. When this process fails, it's basically like the garbage collectors going on strike in the middle of a heat wave. The entire system grinds to a halt. So let's recap. You've got your first responders, your cleanup crew, and your waste management team all going haywire. What do you think you get? You get a full-blown cascade of cellular chaos. The failure of one system just triggers the failure of the next. Oh, but the chaos doesn't stop there. Other immune cells get pulled into the mess. You have mast cells getting overactivated, pouring fuel on the inflammatory fire. The very cells that are supposed to calm everything down, the regulatory T cells, are in short supply. And the special T cells that live in the skin and help it close up, they're weakened. It is a complete system-wide breakdown. And here's the bottom line. The result of all this immune system mayhem is a wound that is biologically trapped. It is stuck on a loop, endlessly repeating that inflammatory stage, totally unable to move on to the rebuilding phase. This is the heart of the mystery, solved. The immune system itself is holding the wound hostage. But cracking the case is one thing. The really exciting part is what happens next. Because by understanding the cellular chaos, by basically hacking the code of this dysfunction, scientists are now developing brand new, targeted ways to step in and fix it. So what do these new strategies look like? Well, researchers are now designing therapies that directly attack the problems we just talked about. Things like topical creams that can block those inflammatory signals, or drugs that can actually persuade those stubborn macrophages to switch into repair mode. We're even seeing advanced biomaterials that can help regulate the whole immune environment right there at the wound. And maybe the most critical insight to come out of all this research is this: timing is everything. It's not just about what treatment you use, but when you use it. A therapy that works wonders in that early inflammatory stage might be totally useless or even harmful a week later. It means future treatments have to be way more dynamic. Which leaves us with this pretty fascinating final question. If every single wound has its own unique immune signature, what's the next frontier? Could we one day create a personalized immune profile for each patient's wound? Could we give doctors the ability to apply the exact right therapy at the exact right moment and finally unlock the code to healing for everyone?